Dating back to 1848, when the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed, Mexican citizens decided to stay in the newly conquered American soil and were promised citizenship, but instead they endured years and years of discrimination. Those same Mexican Americans developed families in America, which led to their descendants enduring the same discrimination and hatred their parents before them received. Mexican Americans, or Chicanos, originally a derogatory term used against Mexican Americans, wanted to stand up for their rights, developing groups of other Chicanos that stood up for each other, developing protests and plans in a responsible and safe way, which developed a sense of recognition for the Latin American population, which led to the opening of many doors and opportunities for the current and future generations.
Suits were a fashion piece in which the younger generation at the time, especially minorities, used oversized suits and clothing items in which they could dance freely. This fashion trend developed in the 1930s amidst the start of the Great Depression, which bombarded the U.S. economy. To make the popularized zoot suit, you had to use extra material to get them to the right bagginess, which infuriated the white majority, especially the ones with patriotic sentiment to one's country. The white mass thought that the use of extra material was outright disrespectful and harmful to the economy, since the economical state of the United States had just plummeted, which then developed hatred for the fashion piece, which snowballed into the grouping of minorities who wore the suits as criminals and gang members. This stereotyping aggrandized the racism that was already targeted to minorities at the time. Racial tension uprooted the sense of obtaining equal representation and treatment, so minorities stood up and developed riots throughout the city.
Throughout all the build-up and development of the racial tension that had avidly developed into a separation of groups, a scuffle between the Mexican American and a serviceman happened, which led sailors to march down Los Angeles, attacking anyone that was dressed in a zoot suit. Riots exploded around the area, with the racial tension raging at an all-time high, in which white patriots hurt Latinos in the area. The riots and the discrimination spread all over the country, which gave a sense of enlightenment, in which Latinos around the country realized they need to stand up for not just them, but for their future generations. They realized that the pain that they have endured over the last years will become a social norm in the years to come. They came to this country for a better life, better opportunities to live, and instead of being received with open arms, they were met with discrimination and hatred due to their race and nationality.
The Chicano movement fought for equal representation of Mexican Americans across the spectrum, like things related to school, civilian life, work, and anything that a normal U.S. citizen has. However, a key character in the development of the movement was a man called Cesar Chavez, an individual that grew a following and was involved in the creation of groups of other Chicanos. They retaliated against not getting equal pay or equal representation in the work environment, especially farm workers that were doing full day's work and were getting paid what many considered low wages. Chicanos were not only getting paid barely anything to work in fields, but they were also exposed to dangers around the fields. They would work and work with the sun beaming on them. They wouldn't have breaks, meaning the access to hydration was little to none.
Cesar Chavez and other Chicano activists like Dolores Huerta developed and grew an organization to represent and speak for Chicanos that didn't have the strength to speak up on their own. The organization developed in 1962. It was named the United Farmers Worker Union, which mainly focused on representing unfairly treated Chicano farm workers and helping them raise their wages and develop a better and safer working environment. The United Farmers Worker Union wasn't just limited to California, where Cesar Chavez started. It was spread all over the country. States like Arizona, Colorado, Washington, and Texas were affected by the Chicano movement, inspiring many to speak up and fight for representation and rights, all while doing it in a responsible and respectful manner. Even though it was founded in California, it greatly affected Texas, which planted the seed for others to consider doing the same as Cesar Chavez in 1960. The segregation of Latinos and white people was at an all-time high. It not only affected adults, but it affected kids as well. Kids around the Los Angeles area were being segregated into schools known as Mexican schools, in which almost 80% of the Latino population was being separated away from the white majority. Jose Angel Gutierrez was the originator of yet another organization which fought for Mexican American rights, called MAYO, developed and founded in San Antonio, Texas. MAYO, an acronym standing for the Mexican American Youth Organization, fought for Mexican American civil rights, mainly focusing on the education side of the spectrum. Segregation wasn't an act limited to adults, but a concept and action that separates everyone of color away from the white majority, meaning that children that needed to have a safe and educational childhood were not able to achieve it.
If we spoke Spanish, there was corporal punishment.
They were getting their rights stripped away from them and mistreated just because of their ethnic background. Chicano teenagers that wanted to fight against the racism and combat that disfranchisement they face in the education system used different types of methods, ranging from small to big actions affecting and destabilizing the racist norm in the education system. Some students took immediate action and started school and district-wide walkouts, while others took a stronger approach, taking legal action against the corrupt school system.
It's Houston, and then some.
Houston, 1970. Federal law mandated the Houston School District to desegregate and integrate the people of color into the public schools. However, the Houston Independent School District wanted to bypass the mandate and yet again deprive Latinos from their rights. Yes, they were being integrated into public schools, but they were not allowing Latinos to be able to represent Latinos, but be represented as white people. Mexican Americans living in the Houston area took matters into their own hands, seeing that the federal government was passing laws that acted like they solved the problem, but instead pushed it under the rug. Mexican Americans started boycotting public schools in the Houston district that pushed against representing Latinos as Latinos and integrated them into school systems fully and equally as the white majority in the city of Houston. Mexican Americans that boycotted chose to have temporary schools that Latinos boycotting were able to attend and get the necessary education they would get if they were in a public school in Houston.
Schools named Huelga or strike schools were a choice for Mexican American students to peacefully protest for their rights while not depriving themselves from the luxury of education. Furthermore, Mayo, the Mexican American youth organization, developed and organized walkouts which not only disrupted school but made their suppressed voice echo around the country, helping others that were scared to stand up for their rights speak up. Mayo had the immense responsibility of being the face and painting the Latino community as good or bad, which is why Mayo chose to organize peaceful protests like boycotts, walkouts, and community events. The walkouts and boycotts disrupted and dismantled the Texas school board and system, which allowed for Mexican Americans to represent the Latino community.
The Chicano movement had many subgroups like the UFW, the United Farmers Worker Union, and Mayo, the Mexican American Youth Organization that started as a fight for Mexican American rights that later spread and helped develop the movement as a fight for equal rights and treatment for Latinos in the United States, which kept fighting and is still fighting to this day. No matter where or when you search in history, you will see that the United States was a country built on racism, a country that fought for the freedom and wanted to give everyone that lived in the land of the free an equal chance at a good life, used and abused minorities that didn't fit the criteria that the United States praised. The United States used everyone and anything to make the life of the white man easier, but that won't be the case anymore. Past generations planted the seeds that grew into the fruits that we use now to handle the underlying racism and hatred, to fight for not only our but our future generations' rights in a responsible and safe manner that won't paint us as the villains. That is the whole point of learning about our history.